Shivers me timbers. The Florida Gators have landed a commitment from defensive lineman Stephon Shivers in the 2025 recruiting class.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. And the Florida Gators just 10 minutes ago landed a commitment from defensive lineman Stephon Shivers in the 2025 class. Harrison, we are so back. Stephon Shivers is a defensive lineman out of Tennessee. He goes to Brentwood Academy right now, which is different from in high school. He was at a lower level school with Humboldt, but which I bring that up. There's a good point for that, but we'll talk about that in a second. Stephon Shivers was previously committed to Georgia, to my knowledge, essentially got dropped by Georgia, and is now going to be a Florida Gator. 3-star on On3, 3-star on 24/7, 4-star on ESPN, 3-star on Rivals, and a 3-star composite player on On3. But 6'5", 385 pounds. I've seen those two weights as the most commonly listed ones, but he's huge, obviously. Literally and figuratively, huge. 6'5", 6'4.5", 380, 385. That's the size range that we're looking at here, which is obviously incredible size. Like that is a big dude on the interior of the defensive line, especially when you look at the Florida Gators. Possibly, likely, we'll say. You can go either way with it, I guess. Losing Desmond Watson. You've got the Cam Jackson is already accepted going to the Senior Bowl, so I will get to see him in Mobile, Alabama in late January, early February. You've got the possibility of losing Caleb Banks to the draft. You've got the possibility of losing Justice Boone, of losing Tyreek Sapp. There we go. Jeez. Tyreek Sapp. Possibility of losing quite a few guys. But in an ideal world, you're going to get Tyreek Sapp back. You're going to get Caleb Banks back. And you will also, by the way, assuming he is back and healthy and returns to the Florida Gators, you will be getting Jamari Lyons back, who is it Monday? I don't know, dude. Honestly, I don't even know what I said. I'll be honest with you here. I hop on this screen and I just black out. It's just a blur to me. But Florida adding depth to their defensive line long term, this is what that is. I think that this is one of those players where you look at it and you say, all right, well, they're swinging. You are swinging on a person with plus size, legitimately. Height, weight, everything. Chat, I see you guys talking about receivers. We'll talk about those in the second half of this show. But Stephon Shivers, a giant human being. I'm very interested to see what his 2024 film looks like, because when you go to his huddle, it's his 2023 film, but that's when he was at Humboldt, not when he was at Brentwood Academy. So he's playing at a higher level of football in the state of Tennessee right now. So I'm very interested to see what the 2024 film looks like. But if you go to his huddle, you go to Stephon Shivers' huddle, and you look at the 2023 highlights, which again, I mean, with how quickly high school kids can develop and all that, it's very different. But you look at Stephon Shivers' high school film and his huddle from 2023, and the first play is him playing running back, and then out of I form, by the way, running back and I form, taking a handoff and going like 70 yards for a score. It's just ridiculous. Like I need to know how he actually compares athletically to some of the other top kids. But I mean, it's just ridiculous when you cut on the film. You see just clearly a giant human being just toting the rock for a 70-yard touchdown. It's crazy to see. And I was like, wait, was he on defense at that point? Like it was wild to see. But this is one of Gerald Chapman's first commitments earned as the head coach of the Florida Gators. Stephon Shivers was on campus this past weekend for the LSU game. A lot of kids were on campus for the LSU game. And that's one of those things where Billy Napier mentioned it during today's press conference. He's like, look, because they were asked, hey, having recruits on campus, what does that do? And he's like, hey, look, winning the football game, that helps a lot. And it does, because what happens is you go out there, you win the football game on Sunday morning. All these kids come into the facility, and you talk with them, and you get, offers for some, commitments from others. But he is just a giant human being, and this is a giant addition to the class. He loved the Swamp. He was talking about, I know, who was it? Larry Cox in the chat mentioned that he said good things about UF. He said that with talking with Gerald Chapman, that it's like, hey, you got to come in and work every day, but like you can come in and develop. And Gerald Chapman is, I don't want to be dramatic, I would die for him. I would die for him. He's got the defensive line playing lights out football, and they are so much more technically improved. And that's an important selling point when you're talking about these defensive linemen that are being recruited by Florida. Whether you're on the edge or you are a nose tackle or anywhere in between, it's important to know your defensive line coach. Because when you're coming out of high school, let's say you're not this 6'4", 380-pound kid, right? Let's say you're someone lighter. When you come out of high school, you're going to hit a strength and conditioning program, and you could blow up, and you might be playing on the interior. You need to know your defensive line coach. And even if you're Stephon Shivers, let's say you lose a ton of weight in the strength and conditioning program, he's still going to be on the interior, right? Because he's high 300s. So even if he drops 50 pounds, he's still going to be playing on the interior. And Gerald Chapman he has the great selling point right now. Gerald Chapman is someone that was so highly touted when he was coming out of Tulane, when he came over from Tulane. Because one, the Tulane defensive line always played great. That was the lifeblood of that defense. And Tulane has had a great defense comparatively for a long time now. And Gerald Chapman had that defensive line booming, right? We defend the run on our way to the quarterback. That's the approach. That's the mentality. And that's the mentality that wins, by the way. And Stephon Shivers has said that he's being recruited to play both sides. But Gerald Chapman has a great, I guess, recruiting pitch right now. Because Gerald Chapman gets the recruiting pitch of, look at all of the kids that were at the University of Florida last year and not producing on the defensive line. And we're talking about the defensive line, not the edge room. But look at the defensive line and look at all the kids that weren't producing. And look at them now. And they're playing so much better. Right? You look at Caleb Banks. Caleb Banks is just, first off, he beat the crap out of LSU last week. Like, he just bullied them. But he's playing light years better than he was playing last year. Cam Jackson playing light years better than he played last year. Cam Jackson had 3 pressures against LSU, right? He had 2 all of last season. He's playing significantly better football. He's already played more snaps than he played last year. He's playing damn good football in the interior right now. Okay? Des Watson's playing better football overall. Joey Slackman got off to a pretty slow start, but picked up. Obviously, he wasn't here last year. Kelby Collins is playing good when he plays, but he hasn't played in weeks. He's probably going to hit the portal. I'd expect that. I think that was a terrible decision to move him to the interior full time. I think he could have been playing a role like Tyreek Sapp plays, or at least that's how I look at it. At least on the outside, Mekhi Boy-Rose stepped in as a true freshman and is playing significant snaps. DeAndre Robinson stepped in as a true freshman and is playing significant snaps. Your defensive line looks really good. And it's a lot of the guys that were here last year that didn't look really good. And so Gerald Chapman gets to go, hey, look at these guys that weren't playing well last year. I got 8 months with them, and they're coming out playing significantly better. Look at where I was previously. And the defensive line has always improved. Look at what previous coaches have said about me. Look at what previous players have said about me. Look at what Geno Atkins, who at one time was the best interior or one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. Look at what he's said about me. Look at what Coach Ed Orgeron said about me. You know, the guy that just won a national championship 5 years ago. Look at what he said about me. And you get to talk about those guys. And Gerald Chapman right now has an incredible selling point. I mean, there's the video of post-game. They're playing Get the Gat, and he's dancing. Like, they're just going nuts with it. And Gerald Chapman has been maybe your best performing coach on the entire staff this year. When you look at how his position has been performing or how his position group has been performing, Gerald Chapman is right there at the top of the top for the Florida Gators. And so Gerald Chapman adds a guy like Stephon Shivers. And the 2023 film I look at and I say, hey, you know what? It's 2023 against Humboldt, like it's against the lower caliber in Tennessee. We'll see what the 2024 film looks like. But it's also looking at it as he was committed to Georgia. Again, the reports are that they dropped him. But then he was deciding between Vanderbilt, USC, Oregon were in the top schools before he committed to Florida. Like this, it's not like Georgia dropped them and it was Florida competing with Akron and UConn. That's not the case at all. It's that you were competing with another SEC school that was his in-state school, a USC team that is trying to load up with their recruiting class, and the number one team in the country in Oregon. Like, that's who you were dealing with. So, well, yeah, I get to look at the film and I say, well, maybe I have some concerns or whatever it may be. Gerald Chapman's a coach where I go, you know what? You've earned the right to not need any or to not be doubted. Like you've earned that right because you've done a damn good job, and I have faith in your development and your ability to develop these players. And so that's how I look at Gerald Chapman when I look at this defensive line recruiting, and I look at everything that he's done. I look at his body of work for the past few years where he's been, the defensive line has been pretty good. And this year, the defensive line for the Florida Gators have been pretty good, despite him being a true position coach in the SEC for the first time. They're playing well. They're playing really well right now. So I look at Stephon Shivers and I say, hey, Chapman, like you look at him and you see I can develop him. I can work with him. He's got the athletic traits. He's obviously got the size. I can work with him. Hell, let's do it. We'll get to the chat, talk about the rest of the recruiting class when we get back here on Locked On Gators. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for superfans like us, the first ones in the parking lot and the last to leave. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a hell of a lot of energy. So whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. My fan fuel is bowl eligibility this Saturday. Available on 5hourenergy.com and shipped nationwide. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite team play live even easier. So if you want to go catch the Florida Gators' last home game of the season with an opportunity to reach bowl eligibility and beat Lane Kiffin, the coach that so many have wanted to replace Billy Napier, go to Game Time. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, baby. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. You're going to take a second to acknowledge that there are 182 people in this live stream right now. During work hours still at 4:52 Eastern time on a Monday for an impromptu stream. That's pretty damn cool. If I'm going to be honest, that's pretty damn cool. We are going to get to the chat to wrap up this show, and I'm going to go back to basically the top. We acknowledged some of these earlier. We will land, if not both, but either French or Dallas. I don't think so with one of those kids. I do think you got a pretty good chance at landing the other one. We will talk about that tomorrow on Locked On Gators. That is going to be the whole show. Is about the 2025 recruiting class, because now that Billy's staying, now that you've got some momentum, we can talk about recruiting again, which I love talking about recruiting. Honestly, like I love it. I'm a draft nerd. I got into media talking about the draft, so I love talking about recruiting and all this stuff and trying to, I guess, evaluate where kids will pan out at the next level. It's fun for me. So we will talk about recruiting a lot tomorrow. If we beat Ole Miss, we'll flip so many recruits. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine with landing 2 kids so far this week, the potential of landing at least 1 more this week, and then reaching bowl eligibility by beating Lane Kiffin? That would be monumental for momentum and for the strength of the program. Because I think if you beat Lane Kiffin, and we can presume that if you can beat LSU and you can beat Ole Miss, then you can beat Florida State next week. Then I think you absolve a lot. I've said you win those games, I'm back, baby. I'm back. The LSU game was a big win. It was. Or at least I feel like it was a big win. But I'm not all the way back yet. I'm trending that way. I've been shown some positivity, and I need to acknowledge that. But you win these next 2 games, and I'm all the way back, baby. The domino effect inbound. Yep, hopefully. And here's the thing. Stephon Shivers isn't even a kid that came because Tramel Jones came. Stephon Shivers, Florida, was already trending with him. And so right now, we're not even truly seeing a ripple effect or a domino effect. That'll come, but we're not even seeing that right now. This is just, you got Stephon Shivers over Vandy, USC, Oregon. I don't like bragging about it being a flip from Georgia because, to my knowledge, he was basically dropped by them. But either way, I mean, they've dropped kids before. Hell, they were recruiting Mekhi Boyero. The report was that they backed off a little bit. Mekhi Boyero is playing as a true freshman and playing well for the Florida Gators. Like, I'm cool with it. I don't mind that at all. Do you think we will flip Jamie French? My answer is no. I don't think so. I'm going to be honest about that one. Keep winning and they'll keep coming. What Chad has done with Banks and Gums is elite levels. Well, Gums is an interesting one for me, at least, because Gums is more Mike P. But Gums also wasn't here that long. And I feel like a lot of his wins come by winning with athleticism, which deserves praise, and winning with athleticism at the SEC is an impressive thing to do. I mean, really impressive. But what he's done with Banks this year, oh my God. Like Banks, because don't forget, when Caleb Banks came through the transfer portal to Florida, he wasn't this highly praised addition. Because what Caleb Banks was at Louisville was someone that couldn't crack the rotation. And so the thought was, well, he's not going to crack the rotation at Florida, or the expectation shouldn't be for him to crack the rotation at Florida. And last year, he was on the team, but I don't think he was super impressive. I think he had some nice plays, but wasn't super impressive. And this year, he just looks like a good defensive tackle overall. He just looks better hand fighting. And again, I know that when we talked about the LSU game, you have to acknowledge, he was going up against a backup freshman, whatever the hell it was. I don't care, because what Caleb Banks did against LSU was dominate them. And Gerald Chapman has helped unlock many plays. Like, again, Cam Jackson's a better pass rusher, right? I don't know how much it's going to help his draft stock, but the big knock on Cam Jackson when he came back to Florida after the 2023 season was, well, you're not a pass rusher. And he's still not a pass rusher. but he's improved, and that could be enough for an NFL team to say, yeah, that's great. So Gerald Chapman, the development aspect of this is just going nuts right now. And you're seeing these kids get better as the year goes on, and that's also impressive as hell. And it's also DeAndre Robinson's a true freshman, transferred in from Texas after getting released from the LOI. Mekhi Boyro is a true freshman and an absolute unit at that. And they think that Stephon Shivers can play both nose tackle and 3-tech. So I look at it and I say, all right, well, that's kind of similar to how Caleb Banks has been used. He plays around the interior. But man, this is just a huge addition because also, again, you're going to need to further improve your defensive line talent with the potential departures you have this offseason. Cam's gone, Slackman's gone, which I know many people like. Slackman has objectively been disappointing compared to what expectations were, but he's been fine off the bench in recent weeks, especially. But you got to assume someone's going to hit the portal as well. So, and Desmond Watson, I believe, is completely out of eligibility. So you've got guys that are leaving and that you need to replace and develop there on the interior well. So like that one. Don't like the decision to add weight to Kelby and make him play inside. I'm not going to put that on Chapman. I don't know ultimately how that decision came by. Like I said, some kids, they get on campus and they bulk up quicker than anticipated, or they gain weight quicker than anticipated. And you kind of go, hey, we're going to move you to the interior, whatever it may be. So I'm not going to fault Kelby for that. Don't be surprised if Kelby hits the portal. Wouldn't shock me either. McCray needs to see the field more. Yeah, he's been progressively getting more snaps, and it's been pretty inconsistent, but he's at least starting to get out there. Yeah, a lot of Kelby love here. I love Kelby as well coming out of Gardendale, but again, I will trust. Gerald Chapman is one of the very few coaches that I don't think I am in any place to criticize because I think he's been doing a damn good job. Running back coach also, yeah, Jabbar Luke's also damn good running back coach. I know there's not, 5 stars coming in and out, but every running back that comes in produces almost immediately. You deserve credit for that. Again, I trust the coach's opinions more than I trust 24/7 on 3 ESPN rivals. I trust the people that get paid 7 figures to do this, and so I'm cool with it there. Will Harris, with the exception of safeties, but that's more of a player issue. Sure, but position coach, with the exception of half of his position group, I can't give it to you there. Don't push those positive narratives, Brandon. Go Gators. I would never, Josh. I would never. Hit the like button. Yeah. Can it's game time, baby, be the new thing you say? Maybe. We'll see. I tried Shiver Me Timbers as the cold opener. I don't think many people appreciated that. I hate it as well, but I couldn't resist with Stephon Shivers being the commit here. Get some DBs. Here for the great news. Hope we can get French. When the portal opens up, which 2024 wide receiver recruit that transfers do you think will be a Gator? My guess is Cam Coleman. I don't know. A lot of kids going to be entering the portal soon. It's going to be really interesting. Really interesting. Why not just extend Billy and lower his buyout? That way you could still fire him next year for cheap if he doesn't perform. Because Billy has no incentive to sign that contract extension. Why would Billy agree to a lower buyout when he's still got 4 years on his contract? There's no reason for him to agree to that, because the alternative is fire him, in which case he would just go, okay, fire me and I still get all my money. So that's how I look at that anyway. Love seeing so many young guys playing on defense. Who Shivers? Mr. Bassman, Stephon Shivers. Yeah, 6'4", 6'5", 380-pound defensive tackle out of Tennessee. Big addition, literally. And again, like I said, like the film that we have available is 2023 film against lesser competition, but he does well against that lesser competition. But that's just one of those, not even red flags, but just question marks of, well, how will that transition? So I'm very excited to see his 2024 film coming out. That'll be interesting. It's going to be funny how all this plays out. I'm a Billy Napier supporter, always have been, even if he has a losing season next year, but most of y'all want him gone. But everybody who makes these Gator videos realize the players love Billy and wanted to play for him. So Yeah, I don't care. I've said where I land on Billy, and I've said that he can win me back, but he has not won me back at this point. But again, I will, I will continue to support the Florida Gators, and if he gets me back, he gets me back. It is what it is. Do you think Billy must get an OC? I think so. I definitely think so. All that really matters when it's all said and done is the players and the kids, and if they're bought in. That's what I've always said. I've always said I don't care how I feel. I've spoken to players. We have Hayden Hansen on the show every single week, and he talks about how bought in he is, and so many other kids are. My opinion is my opinion, right? I'm not trying to make you change your mind about anything. But thank you so much for tuning in to this impromptu 25-minute live stream with right now over 210 people in here, which is just freaking stupid. I can't believe this is my job. Thank you so much for allowing this to be my job and allowing me the privilege to talk about our favorite program. What will win this week due to change your mind on Billy, Brandon? I need the next two. You win the next two, I'm back in. Simple as that. But yeah, I need to see it. I can't just see, well, they're playing hard and they won a game. I need to see you play hard and win multiple games in a row and be able to build off momentum. But thanks so much for making Locked On Gators. It got to 242 people. Antonio, I love you. Thank you for telling me that. That's crazy. That's again, that's just ridiculous that I get to do this. Thank you for the privilege of allowing me to talk about the Florida Gators every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. We'll be back tomorrow, talk about this Florida Gators recruiting class. For Locked On Gators, I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. I'm also on that new Blue Sky. I forgot what my name is, but I'm also on new Blue Sky. I'm sure if you search Brandon Olsen, it'll show up. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. And absolutely, King Sacco. Most Gators fans have given a fair assessment of Billy Napier. We're waiting for him to have a winning season. We'll see you all next time.